So I'm at my shop drying a classic car with my Metrovac Master Blaster.
For decades, one man has held the keys to the world's most secret garages. Wayne Carini, the master car hunter, finds forgotten treasures for the rich and famous. But what happens when the hunt is over? What secrets does the world's greatest chaser of classic cars keep locked away in his own private garage? The answer is more shocking than anyone ever imagined, a collection that tells a story no one has ever heard. The ride that changed everything. The story doesn't begin in a dusty barn or a high-stakes auction. It begins on a summer vacation with a 9-year-old boy. Wayne Carini was born into the world of cars. His father, Bob Carini, was a master restorer himself, a man who could breathe life back into old Duesenbergs, Lincolns, and Ford Model A's. The family business was Continental Auto Repair in Glastonbury, Connecticut, a place where metal was pounded, sanded, and painted back to perfection. For young Wayne, this wasn't glamour. It was work. Every day after school, he was in the shop, sweeping floors, cleaning parts, and learning the tough side of the business for just $5 a week. By the 3rd grade, he could take apart a Model A engine and put it back together again, a feat he once performed for show and tell. Cars were work. They were a job. But all of that changed in 1960. The Carini family was on vacation in the Catskills, staying in a small cabin. In the cabin next door was a doctor from New York, and in his driveway sat a machine that would alter the course of Wayne's life forever. It was a 1960 Ferrari 250 SWB painted in a brilliant red called Rosso Chiaro. One day, the doctor opened the hood to show Wayne's father the engine. Wayne, just a boy, peered inside and saw a mechanical marvel. He told the doctor, "This thing has 2 of everything." It had a forest of carburetors and a symphony of wires. Then the doctor offered him a ride. That single ride was the big bang in Wayne Carini's universe. The Ferrari 250 SWB, which stands for short wheelbase, was not just any car. It was a legend in its own time, a machine built to dominate on the racetrack and command the road. It was designed by the famous Pininfarina and built by Scaglietti, 2 of the greatest names in Italian car design. Under its long hood was a Colombo V12 engine, a 3.0-liter powerhouse that could scream with the force of 280 horsepower. For 1960, this was an incredible amount of power. It could launch the car to a top speed of over 160 miles per hour. This was the car that won the GT category at the legendary 24 Hours of Le Mans race in 1960 and 1961. It won the brutal Tour de France rally 3 years in a row. For 9-year-old Wayne, it was pure magic. The sound of the V12 engine, the feeling of being pushed back into his seat, the blur of the world rushing by, it was an experience that burned itself into his memory. He was, as his own biography says, instantly bitten by the Ferrari bug and hooked for life. From that moment on, cars were no longer just work. They were a passion. His father, Bob, saw the change in his son. He nurtured this newfound obsession. Sometimes, he would drive Wayne down to Greenwich, Connecticut, just to let him stand outside the Ferrari dealership and gaze through the showroom window at the magnificent machines inside. Wayne's eyes were always drawn to one car in particular, a strange and wonderful 1965 Ferrari 365P Berlinetta Speciale. It was a one-of-a-kind car with 3 seats, where the driver sat right in the middle, like a fighter pilot. Little did he know that years later he would not only get to work on these incredible cars, but would also restore that very same 3-seater Ferrari he dreamed about as a child. He would learn the art of Ferrari restoration from the best in the world, men like François Sicard, a former Ferrari racing mechanic, and Luigi Chinetti Jr., whose father opened the very first Ferrari dealership in America. The ride in that 1960 Ferrari 250 SWB set everything in motion. It was the ghost he would spend the rest of his life chasing. It defined his taste, his career, and his relentless pursuit of automotive perfection. But the car that sparked his dream was not the car that would make him a household name. That incredible story belongs to a bizarre, forgotten car that he would chase for nearly 4 decades, a car that held the key to his future. First love, lifelong chase. The year was 1967. Wayne was 16 years old, working in his father's shop. Normal teenagers were dreaming of Camaros and Mustangs. But Wayne fell in love with a Hudson. It wasn't just any Hudson. It was a 1954 Hudson Italia, and it was one of the strangest and rarest cars ever built. A customer had brought it into the shop for a small scratch on the fender, and from the moment Wayne saw it, he was obsessed. The Hudson Italia was a car that shouldn't have existed. It was an Italian-American experiment born from the mind of Hudson's styling chief, Frank Spring. He wanted to add some European excitement to the sensible Hudson lineup. He collaborated with a famous Italian design house, Carrozzeria Touring of Milan, the same company that designed bodies for Ferrari and Aston Martin. They took the chassis and engine from a humble Hudson Jet, a small practical American car, and wrapped it in a handmade aluminum body that looked like it came from another planet. The Italia was a masterpiece of futuristic design. It sat 10 inches lower than a normal Hudson, giving it a sleek, low profile. It had wild V-shaped scoops built into the fenders above the headlights. These weren't just for looks, they were functional air ducts designed to cool the front brakes. The doors were even more radical. They were called aircraft doors because they cut 14 inches into the roof, making it easier for passengers to get in and out. At the back, the taillights were housed in 3 chrome tubes stacked on each side, looking like the afterburners of a rocket ship. Inside, it was just as special. The seats were custom-made buckets, wrapped in red and white leather, and they could recline. The car rode on beautiful Borrani wire wheels, the same kind you would find on a classic Ferrari. Under the hood was a 202 cubic inch straight-six engine with Hudson's special twin H-power carburetor setup, producing about 114 horsepower. But this dream car came at a huge cost. Each Hudson Italia cost the company an incredible $28,000 to build by hand in Italy. They tried to sell them for $4,800, a price that was still more expensive than a Corvette at the time. The project was a financial disaster. Just as the cars were being built, Hudson merged with Nash to form American Motors Corporation, and the new management immediately canceled the Italia project. In the end, only 25 production cars were ever made, plus 1 prototype. This extreme rarity and bizarre beauty is what captured the imagination of a 16-year-old Wayne Carini. He knew he had to have that car. So began one of the longest chases in automotive history. For 36 years, Wayne kept track of that exact Hudson Italia. He followed it as it changed owners, always staying in touch, always waiting for his chance. Finally, when he was 52 years old, the opportunity came, and he bought the car that had been his obsession since he was a teenager. He had finally caught his white whale. This was the car that turned him from a car seller into a true collector. He knew he would never sell it. But the story doesn't end there. A writer for the New York Times, Donald Osborne, heard about Wayne's incredible 36-year pursuit and wrote an article about it called First Love. A television producer named Jim Ostrowski read that article in the Sunday paper. On Monday morning, he called Wayne Carini and said, "I want to make a TV show about you." Wayne thought the man was crazy, but that phone call was the birth of the hit show Chasing Classic Cars. The shocking truth is that Wayne Carini's entire television career, his fame, and his status as the world's most famous car hunter all started because of his deeply personal, decades-long love for one weird, beautiful, and forgotten car. The Hudson Italia wasn't just a car in his garage. It was the key that unlocked the door to the rest of his life. But his garage held other secrets, including ghosts from Hollywood's most famous films. Hollywood's ghosts. This was never more true than when he got a call about a 1949 Buick Roadmaster convertible. This wasn't just any Buick. It was one of the two cars used in the Oscar-winning movie Rain Man, the car that carried Tom Cruise and Dustin Hoffman on their famous cross-country journey. After filming, the car was bought by the movie's director, Barry Levinson. Years later, Levinson decided the car needed to be restored, and he sent it to Wayne's shop, F40 Motorsports. For Wayne, this project was deeply meaningful. The movie Rain Man was released around the same time his own daughter, Kimberly, was born. Kimberly was later diagnosed with autism, and Wayne has said that the movie, with Dustin Hoffman's incredible performance, helped his family understand the condition. It brought autism into the public eye and showed the world the unique abilities of people on the spectrum. Restoring this car was a way to honor a story that had touched his own life so profoundly. The restoration was extensive. The car had been modified for filming with a heavy-duty rear suspension to hold the weight of camera equipment and a cameraman filming from the trunk. There was rust in the rear quarter panels, and the chrome was in terrible shape. Wayne's team took the car completely apart. They pulled the engine out and rebuilt it. They repaired all the rust and sent every piece of chrome and stainless steel away to be replated and polished to perfection. Barry Levinson had one special request. He wanted to preserve the original red leather interior. He told Wayne that so many famous people had sat in those seats, and he wanted to keep that history intact. So, while the rest of the car was made perfect, the seats remained, a tangible connection to the film and its stars. After the restoration, the Buick was a star once again, making its debut at the prestigious Amelia Island Concours d'Elegance. The other car used in the film, which was owned by Dustin Hoffman himself, was eventually sold at auction for an amazing $335,000, showing just how much this piece of movie history was worth. But not every Hollywood story in Wayne's garage has a happy beginning. Some begin with total destruction. In the 1989 movie The War of the Roses, actors Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner play a couple going through a bitter divorce. In one of the film's most famous scenes, the wife gets revenge by driving her husband's prized 1960 Morgan Plus 4 Roadster out of the garage and crushing it flat with a giant monster truck. Most people assumed the car was destroyed forever. But the story of that Morgan is one of the most incredible resurrections in the car world. The car used in the film was a real Morgan, but it was already in rough shape. The production crew purchased it, knowing it would be destroyed. After filming, a man from Connecticut named Bill Caruso bought the wreck from the movie studio. His dream was to restore the car and turn it into a vintage race car. He spent years reviving the crushed Morgan, upgrading it to racing specifications. Tragically, just 2 weeks before he was scheduled to race the car for the first time, Bill suffered a heart attack and passed away. He never got to see his dream come true. Sometime later, Wayne Carini, who was a friend of the family, bought the car from Bill's wife. He knew the car's incredible story, from Hollywood destruction to a restorer's lost dream. Wayne finished the work and finally took the Morgan to the track, fulfilling the promise Bill Caruso had made to himself years before. But the greatest chase of his life was for a car that wasn't famous at all. It was a forgotten American legend, a ghost sleeping in a Georgia barn for nearly a century. The ultimate barn find. The story began with a tip. Someone told Wayne about a mysterious old car hidden away on a plantation near Statesboro, Georgia. The car was a 1921 Stutz Bearcat. In the early days of the automobile, the Stutz Bearcat was the king of American sports cars. It was a raw, powerful machine built for speed and adventure. Finding any Stutz Bearcat is special. Finding one that has been hidden from the world for almost 100 years is a once-in-a-lifetime event. Wayne traveled to Georgia and found the car exactly as described. It had been parked in a barn by its original owner and left there, untouched for decades. The car was a perfect time capsule. The odometer showed just over 10,000 original miles. The car was purchased new from a Stutz dealership in Boston in 1921 by a high-ranking Army medical officer. He drove the car to his new posts, first in Maryland and then to Georgia in 1931, where it was eventually put into storage and forgotten. The car's condition was staggering. It was completely original. The engine's cylinder head had been taken off years ago for a routine decarbonizing job, a common procedure at the time, but the work was never finished. This was a blessing in disguise, as it helped preserve the engine's internal parts. As Wayne and his team inspected the car, they made an unbelievable discovery. Tucked under the front seat was the original handwritten build tag from the Stutz factory, with all the car's serial numbers on it. No one had ever found a tag like this before. They also found old maps in the car that the original owner had used on his drives. Now, Wayne faced a huge decision. As a master restorer, he could have taken the car apart and made it look brand new, perfect in every way. But Wayne's personal preference has always been for unrestored original cars. He believes that a car's history, its scratches and worn paint, tell a story that a perfect restoration erases. He decided to preserve the Stutz, not restore it. The car was carefully transported to Connecticut, where the work began. The goal was to get it running and driving safely while changing its appearance as little as possible. The engine was carefully put back together with a new head gasket. The water pump was rebuilt, and a new set of cam follower guides were made from bronze because the originals had cracked over time. The team carefully cleaned the original paint and brushed the dust from the original convertible top. They even repaired some damage to the original leather seats using period-correct leather to make the repairs almost invisible. Because the original fuel tank was so well preserved, they built a small hidden fuel cell to supply gas to the engine, leaving the original tank untouched. The 1921 Stutz Bearcat was a beast of a machine. It had a massive 360 cubic inch T-head four-cylinder engine. But this was no ordinary engine. It had 4 valves per cylinder, a very advanced design for 1921 that was born from Stutz's racing experience. It produced 88 horsepower, more than 4 times the power of a Ford Model T from the same era. Driving it was a total immersion experience. It had a 3-speed manual gearbox and brakes only on the rear wheels, which meant the driver had to be completely focused at all times. In August 2015, just 4 months after pulling it from the barn, Wayne took the Stutz Bearcat to the most prestigious car show in the world, the Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance. He entered it in the preservation class for cars that are judged on their originality, not their perfection. At the awards ceremony, the Stutz did not win its class, and Wayne was disappointed. But a few minutes later, an official came over and told him they needed him back at the podium for a special award. The Stutz Bearcat was awarded the FIVA Pre-War Trophy, a special prize for the most significant and well-preserved pre-war car at the entire show. It was a huge victory, not just for the car, but for Wayne's philosophy of preservation. The world's top experts agreed that the car's true value was in its incredible, untouched history. The story of the Stutz Bearcat became one of the most popular episodes of chasing classic cars, and the car was eventually sold at auction for hundreds of thousands of dollars. The crown jewels. Beyond the personal stories and the incredible barn finds, Wayne Carini's garage is also home to the absolute pinnacle of automotive art and engineering. These are the crown jewels, cars so rare and valuable that they are usually found only in museums or the collections of billionaires. One of the most fantastical cars he ever worked on is the 1966 Ferrari 365P, more famously known as the Tre Posti, which means three places in Italian. This car is the stuff of dreams. It is one of only two ever built. Its most shocking feature is its seating arrangement. The driver sits directly in the center of the car, with a passenger seat on each side, set slightly back. This was a radical idea, designed by the legendary Sergio Pininfarina himself. The car began its life as a full-blown P2 race car before being transformed into this stunning road car for the 1966 Paris Auto Show. With its mid-mounted 4.4-liter V12 engine and incredible visibility from the central driving position, it was unlike anything the world had ever seen. For years, this automotive unicorn was the centerpiece of Luigi Cinetti's famous Ferrari dealership, and Wayne had the honor of restoring this priceless piece of Ferrari history. If the Tre Posti is a fantasy, the 1937 Bugatti 57S is a rolling sculpture. Only 42 of these incredible handmade cars were ever produced, making them one of the most sought-after cars in the world. Wayne and his team at F40 Motorsports were tasked with a massive multi-shop mission to restore one of these Bugattis to perfection for the Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance. The project was a monumental undertaking that took 2.5 years to complete. Every single detail had to be perfect. Finding parts for a car this rare was almost impossible. Pieces had to be sent away to be re-chromed, and Wayne himself personally mixed the paint to get the exact shade of factory charcoal gray. The Bugatti Type 57S was designed by Jean Bugatti, the son of the company's founder, and it was a technical marvel. It featured a 3.3-liter straight-eight engine with dual overhead camshafts, a design far ahead of its time. The S stood for Surbaissé, meaning lowered, and the SC models were fitted with a supercharger that pushed the engine to 200 horsepower, allowing the car to reach speeds over 130 miles per hour. After the grueling 2.5-year restoration, the Bugatti took second place in its class at Pebble Beach, a testament to the team's incredible work. Today, these cars are valued in the millions, with some examples selling for over $10 million. While Ferrari and Bugatti represent the best of Europe, America had its own king of the road, the Duesenberg. And Wayne's garage has seen its share of this American royalty. One of his most famous garage finds was a 1933 Duesenberg SJ with a long wheelbase. Like the Stutz, this car had been hidden away in a garage for over 30 years. Luckily, the garage was well maintained, so the car was in surprisingly good shape. Duesenbergs were the most powerful and luxurious cars of their time. The Model J had a massive 420 cubic inch straight-eight engine with double overhead camshafts and 4 valves per cylinder, producing an incredible 265 horsepower. The SJ model, like the one Wayne found, was even more powerful. The S stood for supercharged, which boosted the horsepower to a staggering 320. These cars were so expensive that the company sold only the bare chassis and engine for about $9,500. The wealthy buyers would then hire a custom coach builder to create a unique body for their car. Wayne's team restored the Duesenberg SJ to its former glory, applying new paint and materials to bring the elegant roadster back to life. These three cars, the Ferrari, the Bugatti, and the Duesenberg, represent the absolute peak of the collector car world. So what did they find in Wayne Carini's garage that shocked the entire world? It wasn't a hidden stash of gold or a long-lost secret. It was something far more valuable. They found a life story told in steel, leather, and glass. They found the 9-year-old boy's dream in the shape of a red Ferrari, the relentless 36-year chase for a bizarre Hudson, and the heart of a father in the restoration of a movie star, Buick. They found proof that even a car crushed to pieces can be brought back to life to fulfill a lost dream. They found the ultimate treasure, not restored to shiny perfection, but preserved in its dusty 100-year-old glory. The real shock was discovering that behind the doors of the world's greatest car hunter was not just a collection of machines, but the soul of the chase itself.